Hello everyone, welcome to lecture 6 of CRPC. In today's class, we'll be first concluding the arrest topic, that is with the rights of arrested that was left, and then move on to the other topics. I hope you have been able to maintain the continuity where we started work with summons, then arrest with warrant in lecture 4, then we moved on to the arrest without warrant and other arrest provisions in lecture 5, and today we'll be doing the conclusion part over here. I hope that continuity is you can trace out that continuity there. Now let's start off with the rights of arrested part without wasting more time so that the lecture doesn't exceed a particular time limit. So firstly, what I want to say is that this rights of arrested, that this list that you're seeing here is not a list that has come out externally from the court. All these grounds that you're seeing, all these rights that you're seeing, you have already dealt in the previous classes. One or two only must be there that are not there, but most of them you have dealt in the previous classes. Even if I had not given this list, you could have easily picked them out from the provisions, but just for the sake of reference, let's do it here. I would not be going into detail with all the rights. We'll just go through what are the, in general, in 2, 3, 4 lines, what are these rights. So the first right you see, obviously, if somebody is arrested, he should know why he is arrested, which section numbers they have been dealt with, which are some of the landmark cases in this regard. Then section 50A, where you have the right to inform the family. Here you are seeing that one thing I'll tell you, whatever case laws you are reading here, the names that you are seeing here, these case laws were landmark cases in respect of rights of arrested because at the time when they were pronounced, these judgments were pronounced, those rights did not have an explicit mention in the code. Did not have an explicit mention in the code, but later on they were incorporated in the code. Like this right to inform family members, etc. This was given as a guideline under D.K. Basu versus the state of West Bengal. Now it forms a part of section 50A. Then you see what can be the other right, that is the right to be released on bail. Please inform him it is a bailable warrant, he can be released on bail, etc. Then if you have arrested him, then you cannot keep him for a prolonged unlimited time under your custody. You have to involve the judicial process in it. So there's a right to be taken before the magistrate so that he can weigh whether the police has done right or wrong. And the 24-hour limit is also there, section 56, 76, 57, article 22, clause 2, and you can see the case law of Khatri versus state of Bihar. Then you see the right to consult a legal practitioner, which is coming from where? It is coming from article 22 and section 303, if you remember lecture 3 where we dealt with the defense counsel part. Then you are seeing the right to free legal aid, that is Khatri versus state of Bihar, article 21, then the legal services authorities, all of that you can bring out from the lecture 3 part. Then you see the right to be examined by a medical practitioner, section 54, which we had dealt in quite a bit of a detail in last class. That why does it become important that a person who has been arrested also needs to be examined, not for the purpose of getting certain evidence, but for the arrested's interest only, so that to ensure that no kind of custodial violence or any such activities is taking place inside the place wherever he is detained. And then you see some number of case laws like Jukinder Kumar, Neelapati Vera, Shyam Sundar Trivedi, D.K. Basu. All of these cases have not many guidelines which have now mostly been incorporated under the code. So this was a small list that you could see of the rights of the arrested. You can write paragraphs over it. I just put down these pointers just as an indicator that this is a point you can write in detail, you can elaborate these particular points. I hope that is clear. Now let's move on to the other topic of today, that is proclamation for a person absconding. Why do we come here? If you remember when we started with lecture 4, with summons and warrants, what did I say? What was the purpose of giving out a summons or issuing a summons or issuing a warrant? You were trying to ensure that that particular person comes back to the court or his presence is ensured in the court, right? So that was why you were issuing a summons or warrants. Now is it or you were going for an arrest of a person? So what happens if you are not able to, if summons has not been complied with gone, then you went for the arrest provisions. As you remember, like a systematic crisis summons is not working out, you move on to arresting that person. If for example you are not able to find that person, if you're not able to find that person, how will you arrest that person? What would you do in such a situation? In that situation, the court has prescribed that there will be a proclamation. What is a proclamation? There the court is giving a written proclamation, like it's a general public notice sort of a thing, like look, you have to come here. If you don't come, I'll also attach, I also have the powers to attach your property, etc. So let's see the sections that are there in the code. First section is section 82. what happens here is that the court has a reason to believe here. This reason to believe that the court has can be before or even after taking the evidence that the person against whom this warrant was issued is either absconding or he has concealed himself. Why? Because he does not want that warrant to be executed. Then the court may do what? It will issue a proclamation that, look, I am giving you, I am fixing a particular place and time. You have to appear at such and such time, and this particular date that will be fixed will not be less than 30 days from the date of the proclamation. Now, how do you publish such a proclamation? This publishing of a proclamation will be done what? You will go and publicly read in a conspicuous part of the town or the village where that person already stays. Go and affix it on a part of his house or wherever he resides, and you can also come and affix it on the courthouse itself, so that it is a general knowledge that this person, if this person has hid in your house or whatever he is doing, he is a absconder, he's been looked for, he's been called for in a particular place, so please bring him here. These are shire provisions, that the reading part, the fixing on the house and the courthouse. And if the court feels that there is a need, then it can also require that this particular proclamation is run in the daily newspaper that circulates in that area. And then any person who has done all of this, if he writes that yes, this publishing has been done in the above modes, that will be conclusive evidence that the requirements have been complied with. However, you have to always remember, you cannot have a proclamation without a warrant. So unless there was a warrant of arrest, there cannot be a proclamation. Just there was summons and you cannot move to a proclamation. You have to follow the stepwise. Summons, if it was a case where summons was needed, summons was there, failed, moved to a warrant of arrest, that failed, then move to a proclamation. Do not jump from summons to a proclamation. I hope that is clear. Always remember, without warrant preceding a proclamation, the proclamation will not be valid. Now what happens? You have put it out in the public that, look, this particular person is needed in this particular case, and this is a direction from the court that you need to come to the court. But sometimes that is also not enough. Why would there's no impetus for that person other than public shame, etc., that he'll be coming to court. So there should be more powers with the court. So the next part that the court has, that it can also attach the property of the person who is absconding. So what this part is that the court, after it has proclaimed, can issue an order of attachment of what? Either the movable property or the immovable property, or both movable or immovable property of the proclaimed person. And this does not mean that while proclamation you have to wait that first proclamation will be done only after a particular time, then you can go for attachment. If the court feels that the person is about to dispose of or is about to remove that particular property from the court's jurisdiction, even whole or in part, in that case, by affidavit this part is proved, then simultaneously with the proclamation, attachment can also be issued. Now, for example, this particular property is within the jurisdiction of that particular court, whichever has passed the proclamation, etc., then automatically the property will be attached. However, for property which is outside the court's jurisdiction, you will be sent that attachment order to the district magistrate of that area, who will endorse the same, and then he will ensure that attachment is being done. Now we'll see that yes, if I just by writing that you can attach a particular kind of property won't be enough. You have to also specify in what way that particular property will be attached. So let's see how a debt or a movable property will be attached. A debt or a movable property can be attached by either the modes of a seizure, or you can appoint a receiver, or you can give an order in writing that, look, this particular delivery of property cannot be done to the proclaimed person or any person in his behalf, or all or any of the two modes, whatever combination of modes this support feels is necessary for that process, they can do so. And what will they do in case of an immovable property? If it is a land which is paying revenue, then the attachment will be done by the collector of that district. And in all other cases, either you take possession, appoint a receiver, again an order in writing prohibiting that the rent, etc., of that particular property has to not to be given to the proclaimed person or any person on his behalf, or any other combination of such modes. Here one important MCQ question comes is that here there is appointment of a receiver. Now the powers of the receiver, the duties and liabilities of the receiver will be governed by what law? It will be governed by CPC. Please remember, it's a little tricky question, has been coming in MCQs for quite a number of states, that which law governs the powers of the receiver under the CRPC, that would be CPC, the Code of Civil Procedure. Now let's move on to section 84. Before we move on to section 84, please understand that there a property is being attached. It is not essential that whatever has been told that this is a particular person's property might just be that person's property only. Maybe it might be that there has been some sort of a misrepresentation or some sort of an error, and somebody else's property gets attached, or somebody says that look, it is not his property, it is my property. So there must be certain claims and objections that may arise to the attachment. Something has to be done about that too. So claims and objections to attachment has been dealt under section 84. Like within 6 months, you have to prefer by a person who can prefer such claims and objections, by a person who is not the proclaimed person, on a ground that he has an interest in such a property, and so that property is not liable to be attached under section 83. Now this particular claim or objection will be inquired upon, wholly allowed, disallowed in part, etc., whatever will be done, and this particular proceeding can be carried on its death by his legal representative. And where will such a claim or objection be preferred? It will be preferred in the court which had issued the attachment order, or if the attachment was under section 83(2), whereas that when you are outside the jurisdiction, etc., then the court of the CGM, wherever the district, wherever that property was attached, in that CGM's court, in that district CGM's court, you will go. Now all these claims and attachments, objections to the attachment, whether they are allowed, etc., within 1 year, whatever the result comes, they also have a right that they can institute a suit, that they can establish the right which they are to establish, that this is a particular right that I have in respect of this particular property in dispute, but this particular suit would be subject to the result of any order that comes under this section and will be conclusive. I hope that is clear. Now here till now we saw that yes, till now the person had not appeared. Now what happens if this proclaimed person actually comes and appears in court? Now section 85 is telling that if this person actually appears within the specified time, immediately the court will first release the attachment of property, because I did not attach because I wanted the property, the court wanted the property, or the court was like, look, wow, it's so much fun, or etc. The attachment was done because you wanted to ensure that the person comes to court. The moment he comes to court, obviously there's no need of attachment, so the attachment will be released. If the person has not come back, the property now becomes at the disposal of the state government. They will not, however, sell it till the expiration of 6 months. Like for example, if the property was attached in June, then till the next 6 months, the state government will not sell it. However, and also, if there is any claim or objection in that regard, unless that is disposed of, this sale cannot be made. However, if that particular property is subject to speedy or natural decay, or the court feels that no, the sale is essentially for the benefit of the owner only, then the court can pause the sale. Now what happens is that the next thing you see, if this property within 2 years, you're still 6 months tak to koi sale hoga nahi, then you're giving another 2 years ka period. In the 2 years period, this property is lying at the disposal of the state, right? Now this, within those 2 years, I'm giving the person time that if you are coming voluntarily, or somewhere you have been caught and caught before the court, whichever had given the court order, whichever court that had given the order, or whichever a higher court to that particular court, and that particular person is able to prove to the satisfaction of that particular court that he was not concealing himself, or he was not trying to abscond, or he was not trying to avoid the execution of the warrant, he just had no idea that there was a proclamation, etc., then whatever property is left, or whatever proceeds, if there was a sale made or residue, etc., is left, all of that will be, so after some cost, whatever was incurred, that will be first satisfied and then given to him. Then you see under section 86, if there is any person who is aggrieved by any refusal to delivery of any property or any proceeds, etc., they can appeal to which court? Whichever court from which the appeal lies from that. So now, till now you saw the proclamation part. Now we see section 88. Section 88 is talking about a situation where the person for whom you would have issued a warrant or a summons, etc., that person is already present in court, and the officer there may require him to execute a bond, etc., for his clearance, etc. You don't need to go and issue him. He's already there in court. What is the need of giving him summons, warrants, etc.? He might be required to execute a bond, etc., then the next date, etc., he'll also come. All of that. So with this, we are seeing that we have sort of ensured the presence of the accused in the trial. How? First mode we saw was the summons. Then we saw the arrest with warrant. Then we saw arrest without warrant and all other corollary procedures. Then we saw that if summons and warrants are failing, then we went on to the proclamation mode. And then the last mode that we see that if he is already present in court, then execute a bond from him for the further court appearances also. I hope that is clear. In lecture 5, where we're dealing with all the arrest, all the nitty-gritties of arrest, that you can exclude from the processes, but in general you can remember summons, warrants, proclamation, and this particular bond that the person can be asked to execute. These are some of the modes of executing the presence of an accused in the court. I hope that is clear. So I hope that is clear. You could understand the different modes. I would have started off with search, seizure, etc., but I think we can do that in another class so that you can understand in the 3 lectures. In these 3 lectures, we completed this part. So I hope that is clear. We'll meet in the next lecture then, and hoping that there's no problems with the content, etc. We'll see you soon in the next class. Thank you and bye.